Hello, my name is Dr. Sidney Freeman Jr., and this is Communiversity, an initiative that empowers young Black people with the tools and skills for professional and personal success. This program was inspired by the vision of Minister Ronnie Vanderhorst, who wanted to ensure that our young people, fresh out of high school and college, young early career professionals, had this tool so that they would be competent and able to thrive as they go into the rest of their lives. So, with that being the case, we are asking different professionals to come on the program and to share on different skills that are important for our community to have. One of those things we've identified is that of purchasing a home. That is one of the biggest purchases a person will ever make in their life. And we wanted to make sure that our audience had the opportunity to have those skills. So with that, we have a special guest by the name of Mr. Donovan J. Tyson. We're so glad that he's here with us. He described himself as a man of God, a man of purpose, someone who loves his wife and also love to say that he's a girl dad. With that, he has served in the real estate industry for over 5 years, and before that, 7 years in the area of accounting. So he is very prepared to engage in this conversation, and we are excited to have him. How are you, Mr. Tyson?
I'm doing well, Dr. Sidney. Thank you so much for having me here today. And I'm really just looking forward to sharing information, sharing knowledge, answering questions, and, hopefully shedding some light and clearing a path and ultimately, hopefully motivating individuals and just letting people know that, the path to home ownership is not it is something that is for us, and it's something that is attainable as well.
Wonderful. So we're talking to young people, let's say between 18 24. Let's say I just graduated from college with my bachelor's degree. I have a partner, and I'm ready, and people are telling me I need to buy a house. I have my car. I watched the previous episode, and I learned how to get a car. But then, the pressure is on to figure out how to get a house. Could you talk to us about how do you know when you're ready to get a house?
Yeah, I think that's such a great question. I think you're ready to buy a house when the numbers make sense. Um,
Mm,
and I think that the numbers making sense, there's two pieces to it. With real estate, there's a cost to enter the market and there's a cost to exit the market. So it's an investment, it's not a pair of shoes or a bag that you can return to the store. It's something that is an asset. And so
yeah.
understanding where you are in your life and whether you want to be in that specific area and plant roots there, I think that's something that's important to ask yourself when you're deciding if you're ready, right? Because if you're just going to be there for 1 or 2 years, you know, there's a cost to enter and a cost to exit, and it may not make the
Right.
most financial sense to, make that investment if you're only going to be somewhere for 1 or 2 years. Generally, I'd say the rule of thumb is between 3 and 5 years, depending on the market. I'm based in Washington, D.C., so I would say, generally speaking, if you can see yourself staying here for at least 3 to 5 years, you're probably in a good position to invest. Of course, the longer, the better. I think.
Yeah.
And then the other side of the numbers is just, hey, like, can I actually afford this, right? Can I afford this monthly payment? Do I have the assets or investments to put up this down payment, right? And do I have the ability to maintain this asset, right? A home has mechanical components, water heater, HVAC, windows, roof, right?
Mm-hmm.
So super important to be able to maintain and manage your property. So being able to say that, hey, like I'm ready for that responsibility, I think those are the things that you have to consider.
Well, let's talk brass tacks, right? So if I'm 24, I'm trying to figure out how much do I got to save
Yep.
for my first. Everyone's telling me, uh, you don't have to get a big house at first. You can get a little starter home. What does a starter home cost? How much should I have at least 5,000 aside? Do I have 10,000 aside? We were looking for some real practical things because
Yeah.
I'm sure young people are looking at their student loans, they're looking at their car payment, but they also want to begin to build that asset.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, I would say for any young person who's looking to get into real estate, I think you have to go into it with that mindset that, hey, this is gonna be my first property of potentially many, right? And so it's your first property. So that doesn't mean that it has to be the house on the hill on 40 acres with the fence and the 4-car garage, right? It can be a starter home. And the truth is, um, going into real estate and buying your starter home will allow you to elevate and get to that next home that's going to accommodate a larger family, and the next home that's going to accommodate your family as it goes through these different life phases. Um, but I guess to answer your question, it varies by market. I would say you are looking at least a 3% down payment. For a conventional loan. For an FHA loan, you're looking at 3.5%. Um, and that's just
FHA is FHA means what?
yeah, so the
F.
FHA is
Mhm,
the Federal Housing Administration.
mhm.
They offer loans that have certain criteria that will allow you to put down 3.5%. They will fund a loan that allows you to have a credit score of around between 580 and 620. Um,
Wow.
I like to encourage my borrowers or help my borrowers get beyond that
Mhm.
620 score, because the higher your score is, the better of an interest rate you are going to be offered. And the interest rate that you have is really going to help determine, what your monthly payment is. So, I would say at least 3% for that down payment, and I would actually budget another at least 2% for your closing costs. So your closing costs are a separate set of fees outside of your down payment, and they include your transfer taxes, which vary kind of depending on your state. So there's taxes, there's attorney fees, there's something called title insurance, and these are all of the different intricacies of the home buying process that are going to protect your asset as you own it in for the foreseeable future. Um, so roughly, I would say a minimum of 5% to get into the asset. I'm talking about 5% of the purchase price. Um,
Mhm.
and let's see. I, the other general rule of thumb is about saving about 1% of your purchase price each year to make sure that you're establishing an emergency fund for your property, right? So
Okay.
let's say you buy a $300,000 home. If you're saving 1% of that each year, that's $3,000 a year that you're saving. So after owning it for 2, 3, 4 years, you will have an emergency fund of 9, 12, $15,000. And say your AC goes out, or you need to replace your roof or your windows, you're not scrambling trying to figure out where those funds are coming from. You've got it saved already. Um, so 5%, I would say, is a good number to target to enter the market. and then saving 1% each year to help maintain the asset. But there are a lot of programs out there that do provide assistance for closing costs, assistance for down payments. It's very important to understand the terms of those programs,
Mhm.
but that there are also opportunities to negotiate with your agent and with the seller of the property to have some of those closing costs covered on your behalf. I had a closing this morning, and I helped my buyers negotiate 3% closing cost credit from their seller. So the seller gave them about $12,000 to close on their property. And so,
Wow.
yeah, it's totally possible. Don't let the numbers um, don't let the numbers intimidate you. The numbers are what they are, and they have to make sense. But there is always a way to find money.
As you were talking, what came to mind was, how do I identify a good um, real estate advisor or real estate agent, right? So let's just go to that basic level. How does a person identify someone that it would be good for them?
Yeah. I think that's a great question. I think it's really important to understand um, how you communicate, how you like to receive information. Um, I think you have to work with someone who knows how to communicate with you, and also someone who you feel like you can trust and be really open and honest and transparent with, right? With real estate, with mortgage, we're talking about numbers, and numbers can be pretty personal, right? Um,
Mhm.
we're talking about credit, we're talking about assets, we're talking about how much money you have access to, money in the bank, right? So I think it's super important to be able to have open conversations with the person who is your agent. I think you my recommendation would be to kind of gauge their character, right? You want
Mhm.
someone who's not just trying to put you in any and every home. You want someone
Mm.
who's going to ask you questions about, where you see yourself in the next 3 years, in the next 5 years. You want someone who is going to let you know, hey, like, this house is actually in a flood zone. You might want to understand a little bit more about what that entails, right? Does it mean that your
Mhm.
insurance is going to be higher? Does it mean that it's going to be difficult for you to sell in the future, right? You really want someone who's looking after your current interest and also your future interest in the property.
So, could you talk then about a difference between kind of a real estate agent and a broker or an advisor? Are there differences?
Yeah. So the difference between an agent and a broker, a real estate agent is someone who is licensed. They have taken about 60 hours worth of classes to really understand how a real estate transaction takes place. And they are licensed to help you buy and sell real estate. A broker has about 135 or 140 hours of licensing and training. They can do everything that an agent does. In addition to that, they can help you with property management services. They could honestly run their own like real estate shop. Um,
Mhm.
so, I mean, I would say the person who, or the individual who's looking to work with a broker probably owns a lot of real estate. They may need someone who's kind of helping them manage their portfolio. Um,
Right. Okay.
I would say most people, most individuals, especially first time buyers, would be in really good hands with a real estate agent.
No, that's helpful. And going back to some things that you talked about before regarding these different costs after purchasing the house. Could you talk about some of the hidden costs that people sometimes get blindsided by?
Yeah, definitely. So I would say initially, like when you're in this kind of home buying process, right? Some of the upfront costs, You have your home inspection, right? So your home inspection will cost anywhere from $500 to $700, and that money is paid at the time of the inspection, which is before you actually buy the house. But your inspector is going to tell you everything you need to know about the house, about the asset. So how old the roof is, how old the windows are, how old the HVAC is, how old the water heater, all the appliances, basically everything that makes the house function. They're going to tell you about it, and they're going to tell you how much life is left in those different components, so that you can have an idea of how much you should be budgeting to replace or repair those items after you close. Because once you close, it's your responsibility.
Right.
So it's a home inspection, the closing costs. You've got transfer taxes. So depending on the state or county that you live in, you have state-specific transfer taxes, county-specific transfer taxes. Those are anywhere from 0.5% to 1% of the purchase price. You have attorney fees, the attorneys that draft all of the paperwork to, transfer the deed and ownership. So yeah, there's a lot of expenses with, this asset that's, a few $100,000.
I'm thinking as you're saying this sounds like a real process. This is not like I found a house online that I'm interested in, and I saved a little bit of money, so I got $10,000 or $15,000 in the bank, and I want to go buy a house. Like, even if I do have the money saved, it seems like it's going to be some time. Can you give us a sense of how much time it generally takes for a first time homeowner to get access to that asset,
Yeah.
the house?
So I would say, generally speaking, like anywhere from 45 to 90 days.
Okay.
It can happen faster. Like I have had clients, find a house, secure their financing, and close in less than 30 days. It's possible, but I think those individuals, they know exactly what they want, like where they want to be, the type of property they want, and they're able to make, those decisions really quickly. Other individuals, they need a little more time. They need to see what they like and what they don't like, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's important to understand how you operate and understand what's going to make you as an individual comfortable. But yeah, I'd say it typically takes about 30 days from getting under contract to closing. So however much time it takes you to find the property that you want to submit a bid on. So that amount of time plus the 30 days. And then once you close, the property is yours to be making those payments on and maintaining.
So here's our last two questions. One is, when a person's trying to get a sense of the neighborhood that they want to be in. So you may look online in Zillow or one of those homes.com websites, and you see a house, and it may be in a neighborhood. When you go to the neighborhood section, it may not be a neighborhood that gets high scores and things like that. So how much does that play into whether you invest in a house in a particular neighborhood or not, particularly if you're a young person?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's super important to look at all data, right? When you're picking a neighborhood as a buyer, I think it's so important to think about your day-to-day life, right? Like, okay, how is my day going to be structured with my home being here? How long is it going to take me to get to the gym? How long is it going to take me to get to work? How long is it going to take me to get to church? How long is it going to take me to get to the grocery store, right? I think you have to think about those really key elements in your life and build your day-to-day and weekly structure, like with your home being in that community. And if it makes sense, if you can map it out and you're comfortable with it, I think that's an indicator. If it doesn't make sense, if it's going to take you 30 or 45 minutes just to get to a grocery store, right, or to access
Mm,
public transportation, right, those are the kind of variables that I think you have to be um, conscious of before you're committing to this mortgage and committing to a specific property. So I'd say start with building your day to day with this home or community as your hub, and see
mhm,
if it works. See if that community's location, if you have access to the things that you need. If you do, great. If you don't, then maybe start really thinking about those things that you need and start
mhm.
trying to factor those into your search.
So with that, I just want to say thank you so much for your wisdom and insights that you shared. So if people want to learn more about the real estate process, what's the best way in which to get in contact with you?
Yeah, I would say social media is really where a lot of my content lives. I live and breathe real estate. Um, I am on, and I'm most active on Instagram at Don J Tyson. Um, Feel free to direct message me. Um, I am an open book. I love talking about real estate and helping people figure out their path to home ownership. It does not look the same for everyone, but I do believe that it is possible and it is attainable. You really just have to sit down and start having the conversation.
Well, we appreciate you again so much for what you've shared. And to our audience, until next time, we're looking forward to sharing more tips on skills that will empower you and the Black community.
Yeah.
Have a great one.
Thank you, sir.